India Today is the only channel that India and Karnataka trust. We're taking you straight to the epicenter of the new communal flare-up, where India Today's Nabila and her team bring you this broadcast. It's over to you, Nabila.
Thank you, Shiv. I'm right now in Shivamogga. This is where the murder of 28-year-old Harsha, Bajrang activist and anti-hijab activist, took place. And I'm standing right beside the house where the family has been preparing for the final journey of Harsha. It's very tragic and heartbreaking to see the family so broken down. They still aren't able to digest the fact that he's gone, saying that he's probably just somewhere around. He's going to come back home. Very, very heartbreaking to see the family so devastated. But this was a gruesome murder that really has echoed across Karnataka. In fact, the police have now arrested 3 people in relation to the murder, but the motive behind the murder is still yet to be established. We're looking at heavy police deployment here with RAF as well, who've been deployed only to ensure and instill confidence in the people of Shivamogga after the communally charged environment that we saw over the last 2 days. But who is behind the murder of Harsha? Was it really linked to the anti-hijab protests? Was he murdered by some of the Muslim groups because he stood up against the hijab institutions? All that and more, Nolan Pinto and I have reported from Shivamogga. Let's take a look at the detailed report.
This was the aftermath of the murder of young Harsha, a Bajrang activist in Karnataka's Shivamogga. Pelting and clashes among locals prompted authorities to crack the whip, and the district of Shivamogga now wears the look of a ghost town. The last 24 hours, fortunately, have been calm, but prohibitory orders remain in place amid a sea of security to ensure no violence breaks out again.
This is the same locality where we saw some intense protests, where protesters, we believe, vandalized property because they were so agitated and angry over the murder that now we see a complete curfew, a complete shutdown in the Shivamogga district. No establishments have been allowed to open, nothing at all, unless it's an emergency.
The focus now is on the investigation and what led to the murder of 23-year-old Harsha. His family claims he received threats to his life from Muslim groups.
Everybody is one over here. Everybody has brothers and sisters and their parents. What we have faced, others should not face. Everybody else is everybody are my brothers and sisters.
While the motive for the murder is yet to be ascertained, the police have cracked down on a Facebook page called Mangalore Muslims for threatening and abusing Harsha back in 2015. So far, several accused have been identified and taken into custody. This is Kashif, the main accused in the case, who's currently in police lockup. Kashif is a local from Shivamogga, who was one of the men who allegedly stabbed Harsha to death. The other accused in custody is Syed Nadeem.
ಪೊಲೀಸರು ಮತ್ತು ಜಿಲ್ಲಾಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳು ಕ್ರಮ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಶವ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಶವದಿಂದ ಜನ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಸರ್, ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ರಿ ಸರ್?
ಕಾನೂನು ಕ್ರಮ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ.
ಈಶ್ವರಪ್ಪ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಫ್ಐಆರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ ಸರ್? ಎಫ್ಐಆರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ?
ಅವರು ಶವದ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗಿ
ಈಶ್ವರಪ್ಪನವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ
ಅವರು ಲೋಕಲ್ MLA ರೀ ಇವರು.
Amidst all the ugly divisiveness on the streets of Shivamogga, it's residents who pay the price.
कोई पुलिस आई नहीं थी. 48 hours तक बाद.
48 hours.
Oh yes. आए थे, 1-2 पुलिस आई थी, वो आए, वो यहाँ से चले गए. देखो यहाँ
इधर कुछ भी नहीं है. पुलिस इधर तक कौन भी नहीं है. पुलिस भी नहीं है इधर तक. तो
आप बुलाया था पुलिस को?
बुलाना क्या, इधर तक झगड़ा चल रहा. आना ना, खुद आने के कंट्रोल करना ना. आ रहा ही नहीं ना.
पुलिस वहाँ से आगे आती भी नहीं गली में. यहाँ से पूरे पत्थर मारे, तोड़ रहे, फिर भी कोई पुलिस नजदीक आती नहीं है.
Constant appeals for peace have been ignored by politicians who continue to vitiate the atmosphere. The showdown now over Karnataka Minister Ishwarappa's presence in Harsha's funeral.
It is Ishwarappa who instigated yesterday's incident by leading procession. He has no business to continue for a minute in the cabinet.
Questions loom on whether Harsha was targeted for his anti-hijab stance. The police maintain the motive of the crime is yet to be fixed. There's a tense calm here in Shivamogga, and the onus lies on our netas to stop provoking for their own political gains. With Nolan Pinto and Nabila Jamal in Shivamogga, Karnataka, Bureau Report, India Today.
I'm standing right outside the home of Harsha. He seemed to have been very active when it comes to social work, social service. He's been very involved in helping people around the locality all through the time of COVID. This is the story that I hear from family and friends who are living right around here. He belongs to a very loving, bonded Marathi family. And it's very, very tragic that we've lost him today. And how? In fact, I did speak with Harsha's sister, Ashwini, who hasn't eaten for 3 days. 3 days she's not had a morsel of food, saying that she will not eat until justice is brought to book. Ashwini, we know that you're really upset, but you are also on the path to find justice. What do you want?
ನಮಗೆ ನ್ಯಾಯ ಬೇಕು ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಇದು ಹೇಗಾಯ್ತು? ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗಿದ್ನಂತಮ್ಮ, ವಾಪಸ್ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ಗೆ ಇವಾಗ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋದು, ಬೇರೆ ಏನೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ನನ್ಗೊಂದು ನ್ಯಾಯ ಕೊಡಿಸಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನಾನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು.
ಅಶ್ವಿನಿ, ನಿಮ್ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಜೊತೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ರಿಲೇಷನ್
ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ನಾನು ಒಂದ್ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಪುಟ್ಟ ಮಗು ತರ ಮನೇಲಿದ್ದ. ನಮಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಮಗ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿದ್ದ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ಅವನು ಇವತ್ತು ಅವನ್ನೇ ಕಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ವಿ. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಕ್ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ.
ಅವ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ? ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಹೂ ವಾಸ್ ಹರ್ಷ? ಹೇಗಿದ್ದ ಅವನು
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಬಜರಂಗ್ ದಳ ಸಂಘ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಲೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಎಲ್ಲಾ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವನ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಾಗಿದ್ದ. ಅಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಸೇವೆ ನಡೀತಿದ್ರು ಅವ್ನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ, ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಇವತ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಅವನೇ ಇಲ್ದಂಗ ಆಗೋದಮ್ಮ.
ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದ, ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದ.
ಹೌದು. ಇವಾಗ ಯಾರಿಗೋ ಆಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಓಡೋಗೋದು, ಆತರ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ.
ಟೋಟಲ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಬಾರಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಮನೆಗಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೊರಗಡೆ
ಮನೇಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದ, ನೀನ್ ನೋಡ್ಕೊ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮನ ಅಂತ. ಒಂದ್ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಅದು ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ.
Now we're looking at some of the accused there. In fact, 3 of them who've been arrested by the police. One of them is Nadeem. Nadeem's mother has a lot to say about what happened. In fact, Harsha's mother also, who's right now in a very emotional state. In fact, we couldn't persuade her to speak, but we totally understand her sentiment at this point. But let's have a look as to what she said earlier to us.
ಅವರಿಗೆ ಎನ್ಕೌಂಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನನ್ನ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನನ್ನ ದೇಶ ಕಣಮ್ಮ. ಮನೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕೇಸರಿ ಶಾಲೆ ಇದಾವೆ ಸರ್. ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಗೆ ಸನ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದಿರೋ ಬರೀ ಕೇಸರಿ ಶಾಲು ಮನೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಇದಾವೆ. ಮದ್ವೆ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಕಣೋ. ಸುಮ್ನೆ ನನ್ನ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಸಾಯ್ಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಚ್ಚಿದ್ಯಾ ನೀನು ನಿನ್ ಮದ್ವೆ? ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಹಿಂಗೆ.
उस रोज वो क्या गलाटा हुआ कि हम ना मालूम नहीं सर. मेरा बच्चा घर में था, दोपहर में खाना खाया नहीं था, वही सब सोया था. उसकी तबीयत अच्छी नहीं थी. मेरे भाई का एक एक्सीडेंट होकर बहुत बड़ा हादसा हो गया. वो हादसा होगा, वो उसमें वो दुख में थे. अब है ना, वो रात को 3 बजे एकाएक आ गए. हमें कुछ भी हमने क्या भी मालूम ही नहीं है. वो बच्चे को उठा ले जा को कहाँ है. मैं कल सारा दिन पूरे टेस्ट भी फिर डालूं. मेरा बच्चा कहाँ है, किधर है को भी बोल रहे ने. मेरा बच्चा वैसा क्या तो भी गलती करा रहा तो मर्डर करी ना, उनको पूछो. मेरा बच्चा अच्छा नहीं अच्छा को चुप के झूठ इल्जाम देखो. मेरे तकलीफ ಅದು ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಅವರು ನಮ್ ಸುಮ್ನೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಗನ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಪಾಪಿ परदेसी करके मेरा बच्चा उसे चुपके लग जाए. टारगेट देने से इतना बड़ा मेरे बच्चे को क्या तो होगा. तो मैं यहाँ जहर पीने वाली सर. मेरे बच्चे को इंसाफ दिलाओ.
All right, we know that the accused have been arrested, but there's a lot of commotion on that end as well. We have Kashif, one of the accused, who's been arrested now. His wife speaking to us. Here's what she says.
सुबह से शाम रात के 8 बजे तक घर पे थे ना. रात के 8 बजे के बाद में बच्चे को पैम्पर्स लाता हूँ और को ना बाहर गए सो. उसके बाद 11 साढ़े 11 बजे घर को आए ना. क्या वजह से इतना खुद लेट हुआ ना, कहाँ गए थे को पूछने से समय छोकरन साथ था, वो लेट हुआ कर को बोल को ना आए. उसके बाद ऐसा मर्डर हुआ को सुनी में ही, लेकिन इनका नाम तो क्या भी मुझे मालूम नहीं था न थे कर को. बाद में रात के 1:30 बजे कबू पुलिस ले की, जब भी मुझे मालूम ऐसा न कर को ही उस दिन को पकड़ी आको. उनका पूछताछ कर रहे थे ना, क्या वजह से हमारे किधर कर को इंक्वायरी कर रहे थे. जब भी उनके बारे में मालूम रात के 3 साढ़े 3 बजे और उनको बुला ले गए ना.
इससे पहले भी कुछ केसेस थे?
हाँ, इससे पहले 2-3 केस हैं ही उनके।
जब यहाँ पे पुलिस आई तो पुलिस ने क्या बताया आपको?
मेरे पास कुछ भी बात करे नहीं, उन्होंने काशिफ को पकड़े, काशिफ को ने पूछताछ कर ले को वैन में बिठा ले को उससे पूछ रहे थे।
काशिफ से आपकी बात हुई उस टाइम पे आपको?
नहीं, बात करने दिए नहीं उन्होंने, हमें बात भी करे नहीं, आए भी नहीं, हमें डर को पुलिस वाले भल्ला 4 वैन आगे थे, जब हमें डर को पुलिस वाले सबने आए नहीं।
काशिफ क्या काम करते हैं?
लारी काम करते हैं, सुनो कंडक्टर हो को शिवमोगा में करते हैं, ऑलराउंड जाती हैं, सो गोवा मंगलोर वैसा दूर दूर हैदराबाद।
क्या आपको लगता है कि पुलिस ने टारगेट किया आपके जो पति है वो बेकसूर है?
मालूम नहीं, तो सभी तो बोल रहे उन्होंने करी को, मैं तो अंखें से देखी नहीं उन्होंने कर को हिंकी नहीं की को मंजत मानने हो रहा नहीं उन्होंने इतने 2-3 साल से क्या भी कुछ भी नहीं, सो घर में रहे सोले एकदम जाको करना हो तो क्या कर कुछ मुझे मालूम नहीं।
Now, the motive behind the murder of Harsha is, of course, still yet to be established by the police of Karnataka, but there are several angles that the police is looking at, and few of them I'm here presenting to you, one of which is that there was a Facebook page called Mangalore Muslims. On the page has threatened Harsha in the past in 2015, calling him a Hindutva terrorist. So these are angles that the police currently is looking at, that Harsha was first of all threatened in 2015, that this page that was called Mangalore Muslims have threatened him because he allegedly spoke about the Prophet in the past, and he was threatened via this Facebook page. In fact, that Facebook page also called for proper treatment of Harsha. This is what has been written in that, saying that he must be properly treated. Now, what do they really mean with that? Was it an indirect threat? Here we are looking at this Facebook page, which also has called for a lot more information about Harsha. In fact, that page speaks, and a lot of threats that are being issued on that particular Facebook page, asking for Harsha's details and his image, etc., to chase after him. In fact, Harsha also received fatwas and threats from radical Islamists. These are angles that the police currently is now divulging to try and understand if at all there could be a motive behind this, and who are these people who have attacked him. 3 of them have been arrested. What was the reason for them to have murdered Harsha? That needs to be established. We gave you a few of those threats that it seems, that it appears, has led to this murder eventually. Of course, the police now to confirm this furthermore. I'm going to quickly cut across to our panelists. All right, I'm going to quickly cut across to our panelists joining us. We have Syed Nasir Hussain, Karnataka Congress MP, joining us. We also have Charu Pragya, who's a BJP spokesperson, and Chakravarti Sulibele, who's a columnist, to give us a perspective here. Mr. Chakravarti, I'll start with you. How do you look at this murder that has taken place in Shivamogga? A lot of talks about how this boy could have been threatened by Islamist groups, and whether this is linked to the hijab controversy or not, that needs to be established. But it seems like he's been receiving threats since 2015, eventually ended up in murder. Again, the police has got to confirm this. This is speculation based on the Facebook page and the posts and the comments that's now being circulated widely. That's also all the more leading to this kind of communal tension in Shivamogga. We saw what happened yesterday. We shudder to think what could happen in the future if not contained now.
Actually, many say Shivamogga was calm all these days, but Shivamogga was never calm. Radical Islamists are growing regularly. When you just observe Shivamogga, you can see radical Islamists growing in this part of Karnataka. And in this situation, or in this case, that what we are observing, I see 3 parts of it. The first part being they killed Harsha. That was a brutal murder, probably at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at that time. So they brutally murdered him and they escaped from the place. That was first part. And second part was when the Shavayatra was going, and when they were taking his body to crematorium, then they started throwing stones. What we usually we used to see in Kashmir, the same thing happened here. So that was the second part. That means when there is a Hindu mob, so they are ready to attack them now. It means they are growing strongly in that part of Shivamogga. And third part is they immediately started trending Save Shivamogga Muslims on Twitter. So that was within an hour or two, they had almost tweeted 60,000 tweets. So it means that there was something. What I can say is they had hatched the plan, and that was according to plan. They did it. First they killed him, and then they attacked the Hindu mob, and then they trended it playing a victim card saying that Muslims are in danger in Shivamogga. So when I see all these things, I think it's not just some gundagardi or something. There is a well-planned, well-structured plan is there, and according to that they have acted. So now is the onus on the government. They have to find it out who are behind it. So as you said, you rightly pointed out, hijab issue, sometimes it looks so.
Well-planned murder, well-planned attack is what you say. Chakravarti, stay with us. Of course, this was for the Karnataka police and their intelligence to have given an idea as to a situation like this will unfold. How did they not know that this was going to happen? Of course, we know that the murder happened. Post that, large number of people, mobs gathered and went about vandalizing property across many streets in Shivamogga. And that's what's scary. Despite Section 144 that was in place, we saw huge gatherings. Where the police at that point in time able to control the situation. We know that post-mortem we saw what happened. We saw a flood of police personnel being deployed in Shivamogga. But during those 24 hours, when right after the attack, that entire day, there were complaints coming in from residents that they had frantic calls that they made to the police department, but none of them came to their rescue at that point. So the question is, was the Karnataka government able to handle the situation right when the event unfolded? This led to so much commotion and threat in the district of Shivamogga that we see, of course, residents and locals now living in fear. We see RAF deployed right behind me, if you can see as well. Of course, this is in a bid to instill confidence among people in Shivamogga that situation is calm, everything is all right. But that fear will stay on for a little longer. We know that the hijab controversy is still on with the court hearing this matter. It is a very communally charged environment at this point. Let me cut across to Charu. Pragya, Charu, the BJP government has been time and again blamed by the Congress, saying that you couldn't handle a district like Shivamogga, despite the Home Minister Araga Gnanendra belonging to Shivamogga itself. Despite Section 144 being in place, you had large-scale mobs rampant on the street, wielding swords, vandalizing property. What happened? Was it the government's failure?
Nabila, we need to remember that this hijab controversy has been blown out of proportion by the political parties who started supporting it for their own personal gain. And they are responsible for the bloodshed, for the violence, for the situation that exists in Shivamogga today. And let's hope it does not spread, because it has to be contained. There has to be responsibility on the political front by both the ruling party and the opposition. So when we have been very clear to say this entire incident, the entire hijab incident is not a communal incident. It's a simple thing of a discussion between whether a uniform is compulsory or not, and everybody jumping into the fray trying to divide society has been very irresponsible, and we've seen the result of that. The police are still investigating Harsha's murder, but it was cold-blooded, it was well deliberated, and it's a very, very sorry situation. In fact, my condolences to his friends, his family, his mother. It's terrible to see the state that she is in, and this is only because some people who are not being responsible about their statements, about the way they are taking their politics in a very selfish direction, have encouraged anti-social elements to come up with a communal angle to something which was supposed to be simple, which is pending in our courts, which would have been resolved very easily.
All right, let me take that to Nasir Hussain, is an MP. He hails from Karnataka. Nasir Hussain, in Shivamogga, what happened? The BJP entirely blaming it on the opposition. The Congress saying that instigative statements coming in from people like DK Shivkumar, etc., has emboldened the Muslim community here to carry out a riot-like situation in Shivamogga. What's your take on that?
See, the BJP government at the center and the state, they fail on all fronts, and they fail on all fronts, and they start making excuses. Can the opposition
go on, we can hear
be
you,
responsible for the failures of the government? 1, 2. The BJP spokesperson was speaking about the Congress party supporting the hijab or not supporting the hijab. Actually, we are accused of not speaking in the state of Karnataka on the issue of hijab, because we knew that there's a match fixing because some fringe groups which belong to minorities and the fringe groups which belong to Hindutva agenda. Please let the world know what was the statement of their BJP president Nalin Kumar Katil, who hails from that area, Udupi and Mangalore. What was the statement of provocative statement of Pratap Singh of Mysore, who is an MP of Mysore? What were the provocative statements of Sunil Kumar, an MLA and minister, and Yatnal, an MLA, and another MP from Karwar, Anand Kumar Hegde? They're all there in public domain. The kind of statements, this Taliban mindset
what kind of provocative
Bharatiya
statements,
Janata Party.
if you can tell us.
What did Pratap Singh say? That anybody asking for a hijab should go to Pakistan. What did Nalin Kumar Katil say? That what did he say about the Talibanization? What did Yatnal say? Asking all the Muslims to go to Pakistan. What did Anand Kumar say?
I'm sorry. The situation
what
has
did
been
himself say? That
spiraled out of control by your incorrect support to... No, I don't agree with you at all. First of all, under the guise of hijab, you are encouraging
You give me one statement of any Congress leader.
Charu, but what would be the justification to that? Several insinuatory statements that have come in from BJP leaders constantly targeting the minority community, saying things like, go back to Pakistan, this is not Taliban, things like that has instigated the community. This is what the Congress's accusation is. While you're attempting at pleasing the larger Hindu majority, there is constant targeting of the minority happening at your hands with the BJP government. That's the accusation coming from the Congress, which they've spoken in the assembly on the same line as well.
And I know you are a very sensible journalist and you're going to agree with me here. The controversy in the discussion, which is supposed to be about the hijab, has turned into the Arabic burqa today. The burqa which these girls are wearing and displaying with so much of pride never belonged in the Indian system, ever. Where is this coming from? Who is instigating this? Who are the leaders? Who are the politicians who are sending gifts and presents to Muskan's house for being a rebel today? What is the controversy? Let's get back to the base of it. Why did you allow it to spiral out of control? Because it suits your petty politics to encourage minority elements.
Was a bunch of boys heckling her. So keeping Muskan aside, she was heckled by a bunch of boys. So keeping that aside, just the fact that she's a woman and she was singled out, keeping that aside entirely, do you believe that the Congress is taking mileage out of this when it comes to trying to, of course, taking mileage of this communal tensions here? The BJP has been constantly saying that if anything, it's the Congress who benefits out of this communal divide.
So, Nabila, everybody knows that the Congress feeds off the minority votes and they will go to any extent to consolidate that. The situation has escalated to such a level only because of the irresponsible support of the Congress party to this communal tension which exists in Karnataka today. Had they been more responsible and simply said that a uniform rule is just that, a rule for a uniform and nothing communal, things wouldn't have reached this level, and that's the honest truth of it. It is unfortunate that we had to lose a life to reach this conclusion, and even now Congress party is not realizing what they are doing.
What are we doing?
But Nasir Hussain, as much as we hear you, it's still very hard. It's still very hard to ignore the fact that your priorities are completely different in the assembly. Y'all have set a priority to make sure Ishwarappa resigns. What about the murder that has taken place here? What about Harsha? What about the many girls who have been waiting outside classes, outside colleges, not being able to attend their classes? Their exams are just around the corner. No aggression from any of the Congress leaders when it comes to real issues like this. Instead, you're demanding for Ishwarappa's resignation, who we already know is a loose cannon. He makes controversial statements, but you're pinning all your energy on that.
And he has been picked up by our party's leadership.
Nabila, can I come in? Nabila, can I come in?
Yeah,
Nabila, can I come
please
in?
Go on, sir.
See, the Congress is a responsible...
Yeah, please go on.
Who will disrespect our flag? Who will disrespect our constitution? Who will disrespect our ethos? Ishwarappa, time and again, he has not only disrespected, he has insulted our national flag, he has insulted our constitution. We will go all out to see that he is thrown out of the candidate and the sedition charges are slapped against it. Number two, we have spoken on hijab in a very responsible way. We have requested, we have asked the government of the day to see that these girls are ensured to be there in the colleges, and this has to be sorted out at the earliest. Let me not get into the debate of hijab because it will consume lots of time. This could have been sorted out at the level of the college in Udupi itself. These people, especially the statements of all the BJP leaders whom I named earlier in my debate, because of them this provocation has happened. It is a match fixing between SDPA, PFI, CFI on one side, Bajrang Dal, Ram Sene, Bajrang Dal, Ram Sene, BHP and BJP on the other side. They know they can feed on each other. One form of communalism is feeding on the another form of communalism. They are the two sides of the same coin. That is why they are allowing.
No, it just suits you to say that. But who has allowed PFI and CFI to reach this level? Who has allowed them roots? Who has allowed them
this kind of mudslinging on both ends between political parties is really not helping the situation on ground. It's really adding to this environment. You know, is there any way that the Congress can shift focus from Ishwarappa, which you can always fight for, and move to real issues like, for example, the death of an activist here, of Harsha, who's been murdered? He was hacked to death, and really, who takes the accountability for it?
Nabila, see, a young lad has been hacked to death. He has been murdered. I am all with his family. Anybody and whoever is involved in this should be arrested, tried, and should be punished harshly. There are no mincing of words on this. But the point is, after that, what happened yesterday? Who was the person who was leading the rally? Which is the government which leveled curfew in that area? And who is the leader and which is the party? Again, violating the curfew, took hundreds and thousands of people. Who are the people who are involved in arsoning, loot, stone pelting, flashing of swords in public areas? And who is responsible for the destroying of the public property in Shivamogga? What is the government of the day doing? The minister himself is leading a mob of carnage in Shivamogga. He has to not only be sacked, he should be thrown behind the bars.
No, you're not worried.
Right. You know, I'm going to quickly cut across to Deputy Commissioner of Shivamogga, who's speaking currently. Let's cut across what he has to say.
So ಇನ್ನ 4 ಜನಗೆ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ A1 ಮೊಹಮ್ಮದ್ ಕಾಸಿಫ್ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. A2 ಸೈಯದ್ ನದೀಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇವನು ಕೂಡ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಸಿಫ್ ಉಲ್ಲಾ ಖಾನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು A3, A4 ರಿಹಾನ್ ಶರೀಫ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, A5 ನಿಹಾನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ನಿಹಾನ್ ಅವ್ನು ನಿಹಾನ್ ಬಿನ್ ಲೇಟ್ ಸೈಯದ್ ಅಕ್ಬರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ತಂದೆ ನಿಹಾನ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಇರೋದು. ಮತ್ತೆ A6 ಅಬ್ದುಲ್ ಅಫ್ನಾನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅಫ್ನಾನ್. ಹಾ, ಸೊ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ 21 ರಿಂದ 22 ವರ್ಷ, 22 ವರ್ಷ ಇರೋದು. ಮೊಹಮ್ಮದ್ ಕಾಸಿಫಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ 30 ವರ್ಷ ಏಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗದೇ ನಿವಾಸಿ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಮುಂಚೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಪೇಟೆನಲ್ಲೇ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಈಗ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸಿಫ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಪೇಟೆನಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಈಗ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ನ 4 ಜನ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಕೊಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇದು ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮೀಟ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ.
Investigation is currently underway. So far, 4 people have been arrested, but they are still trying to understand what the motive behind this.
ಇನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಕಂಡು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆತರ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ನ ಸದ್ಯದಲ್ಲೇ ನಾವು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
While 4 of them were arrested, there are a few more who have been detained. In total, 6 arrests have been made so far. This incident happened on Sunday night.
6 ಜನಗೆ ನಾವು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಈಗ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್
we have arrested 6 people so far in this case.
FIR ಈಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಇನ್ನ 3 ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ
with regards to the violence, there have been no arrests so far.
ಸೊ ಈಗ ನಾವು 2 ಜನಗೆ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಏನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಇವರಿಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗ ಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲೇ ನಾವು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಒಬ್ಬನಿಗೆ ಅವ್ನ ಮನೆಯಿಂದಾನೇ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಇನ್ನ ಉಳಿದಿರೋರಿಗೆ ಈಗ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ರಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಫರ್ದರ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮೋಟಿವ್ ನಾವು ತನಿಖೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನ 2 ಜನಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಕಸ್ಟಡಿ ಕೂಡ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾರ್ದು ಇಂಟರ್ರೋಗೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಮೋಟಿವ್ ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೌದು, ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ.
Only once we interrogate the matter and once questioning is complete, will we be able to understand what the motive is.
ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಮಾದರಾಯನಪುರಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ರಾ ಸರ್, ಅಥವಾ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಪಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಸರ್? ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ A1 A2 ಲೀಗಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇವರು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಸರ್?
ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಆತರ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ A1 A2 ಗೆ ನಾವು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗ ಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು.
A1 A2 ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗ ಸಿಟಿ, ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಪಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್.
ಪಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ
ಇನ್ ದ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಆರೋಪಿಗಳ ಅಥವಾ
We arrested the main accused from Shivamogga city itself.
ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವುದು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲದು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಸಬ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಇವಾಗ 4 ಜನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಇವಾಗ ಅಡಿಷನಲ್ ಆಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವರು ಶಿವಮೊಗ್ಗ ಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದನೇ
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ರಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಫುಲ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಟೋಟಲ್ ನಮ್ದು 19 ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. 19 ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 18 ಗಾಡಿಗಳು ಜಖಂಗೊಂಡಿದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಸನ್ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಕೂಡ 4 ಇದೆ. ಆರ್ಸನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೆಂಕಿ ಹಚ್ಚೋದು.
With regards to the arson and the vandalism that took place, 18 vehicles were damaged in the protest.
ಇಂಜೂರ್ಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಆಗಿ 6 ಜನ ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 6 ಮತ್ತೆ 2 ಟೋಟಲ್ 8 ಜನ ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಂಜುರೀಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್
6 people
ಮೈನರ್ ಇಂಜುರೀಸ್.
About 8 people have complained with regards to the violence that took place right after Harsha's murder.
ನಾವು ಇನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಮ್ದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ.
There's a lot of reports coming in of property loss with regards to houses being vandalized, glasses have been damaged, stone pelting that took
place. ಈಗ ನಮ್ದು ಟೋಟಲ್ ಡೆಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸುಮಾರು KSRP ಮತ್ತೆ RF ಎಲ್ಲದೂ ಸೇರಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು 1200 ತನಕ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲ, ಈಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು 4 ಜನ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
About 1,200 RAF personnel and reserve police have been deployed.
ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮುಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ದು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೀಸ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಏನೇನಿದೆ ಅದು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಫರ್ದರ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ಬಾರ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದೊಂದು ಅಂಗಡಿ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಓಡೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮುಂದೆ ಇದು ಹತ್ಯೆ ಆಗಿರೋದು. ಬಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಐ ವಿಟ್ನೆಸಸ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಹೇಗಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದೂರ ಚೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮರ್ಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಮಾರಕಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಏನಿದೆ, ಮಾರಕಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅದು ಬೇರೆ ಒಂದು ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಅಂಗಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ.
ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ನಮ್ದು ರಿಕವರಿ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇದೆ. ರಿಕವರಿ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಕಸ್ಟಡಿ ಕೂಡ
ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಗಲಭೆಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಿಸಿದ ಮೆಡಿಕಲ್ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಅಡ್ಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ.
ಈಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಮೆಗನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆ ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋದು 8 ಜನ ಇದೆ ಟೋಟಲ್. ನಿನ್ನೆ ನೈಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಜಾವ ಒಂದು 5:30 ಇಂದ 6:30 ಸುಮಾರಿಗೆ 3 ಆಟೋ ಮತ್ತೆ 2 ಬೈಕಿಗೆ ಆರ್ಸನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಅವನ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಬೇರೆ ಆರೋಪಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಗೇಷನ್ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮಗೆ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಎವಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಂಧನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು.
We are still investigating the matter and why the murder took place. As in when the investigation continues, we'll give out details of what was the motive.
ಅದು ಏನೇನು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲದೂ ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ನು ಇಂಟರ್ಗೇಷನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರದ್ದು ಕೂಡ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಗೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳಿಕೆ. ಈಗ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೀಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಇದೆ.
Only once we interrogate every single individual will we be able to tell you exactly what really happened, why this boy was murdered.
ಘಟನೆ ಆಗದಿರಂಗೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್.
ಅದೇ the situation is right now peaceful. We will decide on further action on whether to extend the curfew tomorrow. And only post interrogation will we be able to give further details.
ವಿಕ್ಟಿಮ್ ಮೇಲೆ 16-17 ಕೇಸಸ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಅದು ಒಂದು 2016 ಮತ್ತೆ 2017 ಕೇಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದು ಒಂದು ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಹರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ರಿಲಿಜಿಯಸ್ ಸೆಂಟಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ 2 ಕೇಸ್ ಇದೆ. 4 ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್, 6 ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಈಗ A1 ಪಾತ್ರ A1 ಅವನೇ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು, ಕಾಶಿಫ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು 4 ಜನ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಜನ ಇವತ್ತು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ A1, A3, A4 ಮತ್ತೆ A5 ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿ ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಉಳ್ದೇ ಇರೋರು ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. A1, A3, A4, A5 ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು.
There were some people who these accused have gathered and attacked the boy. Seems like
A2 ಮತ್ತೆ A6
they got
ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ
support
ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್
from
ಆಗಿ
many others.
ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಪಿರಸಿ
The
ರೋಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ
victim had
ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ
cases in
ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ
writing
ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ.
and
ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ನ
hurting
ಫರ್ದರ್
religious
ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಷನ್
sentiments.
ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ರೋಲ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಕಂಡು ಬರ್ತದೆ.
Still not able to establish what the
ಹೌದು,
exact
ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಕೂಡ
role of
ಆರೋಪಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 5 ಜನದ್ದು ಕೂಡ
Harsha was, and these accused they're only trying to question them so that we understand more on what happened.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ರೌಡಿ ಶೀಟ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ.
ಯಾವ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಒಟ್ಟು ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೇಸ್ ಇತ್ತು?
ಈಗ ನಾನು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ದಲ್ಲ 2 ಕೇಸ್ ಇತ್ತು, 16 ಮತ್ತೆ 17. ಒಂದು ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಕೇಸ್, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮೇಲೆ 2 ಕೇಸ್ ಸೇಮ್.
ಓಕೆ, ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಈಗ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ನಾಳೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಬರೀ 144 ಇತ್ತು. ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಇಲಾಖೆ ಮತ್ತು ಇವತ್ತು ನಡೆದಿರುವ ಘಟನೆಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನು ಇನ್ನೂ ಒಂದು 2 ದಿನಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು 144 ಅನ್ನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಕಾರಣ ಏನಾದ್ರು ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇವತ್ತು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಬಹಳ ವಿಜಿಲೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕಡೆ.
All right, I'm going to quickly cut across to our panelists there. We have Charu Pragya, who's still with us, and Nasir Hussain. Mr. Nasir Hussain, we heard what the police had to say. It appears that all the accused were friends. They seem to have ganged up against this guy who may have heard communal sentiments in the past for his comments that he has made, but yet it needs to be established. Now, we're seeing an increasing, growing number of people from the minority community coming up together in groups and trying to, of course, single out those who are making insinuatory statements against the religion, against Islam. A group called Mangalore Muslims is said to have threatened this boy Harsha, saying because he allegedly said something about the Prophet in the past, and that he's made some statements that wasn't very pleasing to the community, and therefore they've tried to sort of target him. This is the angle that the police also is trying to establish. Would you want to contribute on that?
Nabila, see, whatever I could gather from the discussion in Canada is very clear that the police is trying to investigate the matter further. They're trying to find out the reasons behind the matter, the motive behind the matter. I think the police should crack this case as soon as possible, because whoever is involved in it should be exposed, and anybody is there any other motive to it? And also, all those people those are involved and the organizations behind it. If there is any organized mob group or any political organization involved behind, even they have to be investigated. See whether he is a Hindu or a Muslim, whether he is belonging to this party or that party. Nobody has any right to resort to violence. But the fact remains is, in Karawali region, or what you call a postal.
I'd just like to ask you one question: Is the Congress being very soft? Is the Congress being very soft on the SDPI, the PFI? We hear in 2018 the Congress was very open to an alliance.
Nabila, you have heard Mr. Sidramaya speaking. You have heard Mr. D.K. Shukumar speaking. You have heard me speaking on a number of television channels during the debates, and in open public meetings. We all have given a call for a ban to all those organizations, whether they belong to Muslim or Hindu or Christian, whatever organization, who are fringe elements, who are contributing to violence, who are polarizing in that part of Karnataka. They have to be immediately banned. There's no doubts about that. We have always been against both majority communalism and minority communalism. We have been saying that groups are radicalized in both the sections, amongst the Hindus and amongst the Muslims. See, the Aam Hindu and Aam Musalman, common Hindu and common Musalman, has nothing to do with it. The people, the guys, those who are radicalized are people, those are the guys, those are belonging to particular organization. Why is this happening? Who is responsible for this? Are the political parties contributing to it? Are the statements, provocative statements of the leaders of political parties contributing to it? This is something which needs to be debated further. And the fact remains that there is a Taliban mindset within the BJP. There are some habitual offenders who keep on giving provocative statements, keep provoking. That further radicalizes both the Hindu youth and the Muslim youth. This has to be stopped if we have to have saner politics and a saner Karnataka.
Absolutely. There needs to be immediate intervention because this is scary. We're living in the age of smartphones. Information and data is shared so quickly, and most of the time it is unverified. And that's what really raises tensions all the more in a city like, say, for example, Shivamogga itself, where you have a large student population who are really opinionated, and there are instances of either one group being completely radicalized with Islam or Hindu radical elements also who are currently on the prowl here, who can really in minutes turn this entire beautiful city into a communal hotbed. And that's why it's very important for government and police intervention in time. Charu, I want to take the last question with you. As we see, there's a huge police deployment in Shivamogga, but at least for the last 24 to 48 hours, it seems like there's a lot of questions on how the government really handled this kind of chaos. You all could have avoided it, but it seemed like it was out of control. A quick word, as I'm standing right here in front of Harsha's house. We don't want a situation like this to pan out. What's the word of assurance you'd give to people of Karnataka?
Definitely not, Nabila. And you're right that this is a very scary situation which has been allowed to get out of control, as I earlier said, because of the wrongful support and the polarizing politics of Congress. I'm very clear to say this, all the appeasement that they have done for decades is coming back to bite our citizens today. And when you talk about stray statements which attack a community, well, Mr. Hussain, do I need to remind you of all the continuous string of statements made by your tallest leader, starting from Digvijay Singh and what not? So please, your appeasement policy is actually harming my country today. Your appeasement policy is actually causing the death of youngsters today. The divide and rule politics that you have learned from the Mughals, from the Britishers, has no place in modern India.
All right. Maybe for once, if we can appeal for our politicians to come together on the same page when it comes to violence. Say no to violence in any form. Thank you very much. Charu, Pragya, thank you very much. Right, thank you very much, Charu. Thank you, Nasir Hussain, for joining us. Appreciate your time. Of course, we are appealing to the people of Karnataka. We don't want to see situations like this because at the end of it, it's just the innocent locals, the residents who are so fearful right now. They're very worried to step out of their homes. You don't want to see sights like this. As great as the RAF looks, a fabulous uniform, they're such great people, but it is slightly tense and you know, worrisome when they stand outside your homes because it certainly does not spell for peace and harmony. At least they're trying to instill that confidence, but nonetheless, we know that people are worried.